Hello, I'm Dragoș, and in this video we're going to see how we can configure Dokploy to do automatic backups for our application and for our Dokploy configurations to an S3 destination. So basically with Dokploy you can use any S3 object bucket destination that you want. In here you have only a few. You see that you have AWS, Cloudflare, Wasabi, DigitalOcean Spaces, and a lot more. And also you can add your custom one. And we're going to configure one from scratch. So I am hosting my VPS on Hasner. Also Hasner has an object storage that you can use, but for backups it's not recommended to use the same provider for everything. So if you want to have a safe backup, it will be good to use another S3 provider, so the backups to be stored externally from your Hasner account. So let's think that someone breaks into your account and deletes everything in there, then you don't have anything to restore. Also the same can happen that Hasner maybe suspends your account and you would want to have these backups externally. You don't want to keep everything under the same account. So in here I've just configured something. You see in here that I've choose the Cloudflare R2 because it's offering a free tier. You can do 10 gigabytes backups for free. So this is enough in case you have small applications, and it's not expensive if you have like 10 or 20 gigabytes of data. We're going to see the pricing in a second. And in here you see that you can do backups for web servers. So basically in here you can configure backups to go and back up your Dokploy application. So this is backing up the Dokploy application, not the application itself. And in case you have projects, you have the options to go to, for instance, in self-hosted application. And in here I've did a backup for Uptime Kuma. In here you see that I have a disk for Uptime Kuma where it tells the data. And if we're going to check the volume backups, okay, let's see. I think I've configured for the other one. So Bezel, let's see. Yeah, so I configured for Bezel, the monitoring tool, the backup. And again, in here, again, you have a Bezel data that it's backed up. And in here, you see that, for instance, you have this backup that it goes and creates this backup all the time, and you can also restore it. And in here, you see that you have some options that we're going to see, but basically, this backs up the Bezel data every week. And if you're going to check the object storage in here, you're gonna see that I have a Dokploy backups. And yeah, I mean, this is pretty small. It's only using 40 megabytes because there aren't a lot of data right now in there. So you see that in here we have the web server backup daily with only a couple of megabytes because there aren't a lot of configurations added. And again, in here you have the Bezel. And yeah, if you're thinking to use the R2, then you will have free forever 10 gigabytes per month of storage, and you will have the 1000 class A operation. Basically these are the requests that are made in there to put objects and do things like that. These are the read operation class B when, let's say, Dokploy wants to read the details from there. And you see that the extra things are not that expensive. So for instance, if you have 100 gigabytes of data that you want to store in here as a backup, you will pay $1.50 for 100 gigabytes. The price will be per gigabyte. So yeah, in here you see that right now, for instance, I have only 40 class A operations for a couple of backups, and I have 1 million, and class B even lower. So right now what we're going to do, we're going to go and configure these backups and the buckets from the beginning, so you can understand. I've also created an article in here with all of these things and a lot of explanations if you want to check more in details what is happening in here, and you want to see the commands and different things that you want to use for backups. So let's go. And the first thing that we're going to go and do in here, you will need to go in here in storage and databases, and in here you'll have the R2 object storage, and in here in overview, in case you are not subscribed to this service, you will need to go and subscribe, so this R2 object storage to be activated. It was done in 20 minutes, didn't do a lot. And in here you need to create a bucket, and in here I will create a bucket for this, and I will put the bucket name like Dokploy backup 2, and in here you have the options to choose the location. So it will be good to choose, for instance, the closest location to your server, so this to be speedy. So my website it's in Eastern Europe, in Frankfurt, my server, and I will choose this from here, and then you choose the standard one, because you are going to maybe need access to these objects, and maybe you want to delete them because you don't want to store everything in here. And right now I will create a bucket like this, and this right now it's a empty bucket, and in here you can go and, for instance, configure the S3 compatibility API with the details. So to do that, we're gonna go in overview again, and in here you have the two buckets for our things, and in here you will have the API tokens, and in here you have the manage, and we are going to create a new API token that it will be used for this. I will create a user API token. I will use the admin. I'll put it like this, test. So it will be read and write, and I'll put the forever to stay active, and in here you can include for this token IP addresses of your server if you want. I'm not going to do that right now, but you can put the email address of your server to only allow access to this for your servers only. Create API token. Okay, so right now we'll have the token in here created, and what we're going to do is we are going to go and configure everything in Dokploy in there. So in here we are going to go to S3 destinations, and in here we're gonna add a new destination. You're not gonna have any S3 destinations by default, and in here I will put just test because I already have one, and in here we have the option to choose a provider, and you see in here that we have a lot of providers with Amazon, Alibaba, DigitalOcean, IBM, iDrive, Linode, Minio if you want to host your own, Airclone S3 server, Synology, C2 object storage, and you can also add a custom one in here, another one if you want, but we're gonna go and use the Cloudflare R2 storage for this. So we're going to go and get the access key ID. Access key ID is this one in here. Click here to copy. We're going to copy this. We're going to put it in here. Secret access key. I'm gonna delete them after. So, okay. In here you put the bucket, and the bucket that I've created is the like this. In here you'll put the region. So yeah, right now I will copy the endpoint for this. So in here you have the endpoint for this, and the region, then we're going to put it in there. So let me put the endpoint. Let's test it just like this because it should work without a region in here. So right now it's working also without a region, but you can configure the region if you want. In here, if you are going to go again to storages, you'll see in here the Eastern Europe, EU, UR, it's the region, so you can put it in there if you want, like this. So I will hit create right now, and the test connection, you see that it was successful. And right now I have a test one in here. So for instance, in the web servers, to back up the Dokploy web server application, so basically this it will back up what it is in the ATC Dokploy folder. I can go in here and I will need to delete this because I want to show you. So like this, it will be in there when you don't have anything configured. You will need to hit create backup, and in here you can choose the destination. I will gonna choose the test one that we just created, and in here database, it will be chosen by default because it will be the Dokploy one. Schedule in here, you have every minute, every hour, every day at midnight, every Sunday, or a custom one, every 15 minutes, every month. So every day, I'll just put it like this. I think if you're not adding a lot of things in here, you can put it in 1 week. And prefix destination, I'll just let it like this, choose the latest. And so in here it will ask you to choose how many backups you want to keep. I will keep 5 because I don't want to overload this bucket and pay a lot for the backups that I don't need. Okay, enable, so this will be enabled. So if you hit create right now, it's active, and you see in here the details. So right now you can go and run a manual backup, and this should go and create a backup for us. But you can go and for instance in here and view the logs, and in here you see that right now you have the backups done. So you will see that you have the database backup done in here and the file system together. So you will have backup everything in there. And if you are going to check the storage overview in here, you will see that you have a web server backup. It will be a zip file that you can go and download it, and this will hold your web details for this. And then what you can also do is to go and backup the application that you have. So in here I have project, I have some self-hosted application, and let's backup the Uptime Kuma right now because the bezel I backed up. And in here, for instance, I want to backup the Uptime Kuma data, and this is the volume. And to do that, we're gonna go and do the volume backups. So in here we are gonna add the volume backup, and again you will provide a task name, so daily backup. Schedule, again you have the options to choose between the schedule, so every day at midnight it will be fine, but in function of the application type. So if it's business critical, maybe you want to back it up more often, 2 or 3 times a day. In here you have to choose a destination again. I will choose the test one. Service name, Uptime Kuma. In here, volumes, you see that you have the volume in here with the name that it's before. Volume name is this one. It will be automatically created. You have the options to put a prefix, and you have the options to, again, to tell it how many backups to be kept. In here I'll put 5. It depends on how many days or weeks, or I don't know, if you're doing 3 times a day, maybe you want to keep it for more days. Like if you want to, for let's say 10 days to keep the backups and they are doing 3 times a day, you can go and choose 30. You have the options to turn off the container during backup for this if you want to keep a consistent data, but I'm not going to do that. This is enough. And create volume backup, and right now the backup it's enabled and it will run at midnight. And if you want again to run it right now, you can do it like that, and it run successfully. Then you can go and check again the logs, and in here you see that it goes and backs up the details that are in this volume. It's the Uptime Kuma details. And if we're going to check again in here, buckets, you're gonna see that you have the backup for the Uptime Kuma, and again it's like a couple of megabytes. So right now it will run automatically and it will only keep 5 of these. So you see in here that these are the operations, class A operations for these 2 backups that were done and configured, and the test that were did, because every request in here it will be counted. Okay, another thing. You can also backup your databases if you want in the same way. So in case you have databases in here, for instance, let's say you want to go and create a project and you want to create a service database. Yeah, I will just create a Postgres one. Okay. And right now, I'm not gonna deploy it, but in backups in here, you can create also a backup for your database. And you see in here that again, you have the same options to choose the destination. For this scheduler, the same destination, keep the backups. And what this will do, it will just use the dump future, the SQL dump futures for this. So basically, you see in here the MariaDB. For instance, for MariaDB, MongoDB, it will use the MongoDB command for MySQL dump and pgdump. So basically, it will use the utilities for the databases to do these backups, and it will gzip everything and it will store it on there. So you can also backup the database in there that you want. Let's see if we're gonna deploy this. I'm gonna pull the image. Okay. And in here you can choose the you see that it didn't find the database because we need to go and put the exact name in there. Database name, it is test. I just wanted to show you that. So in here you can put test, update, and right now the database should be backupped. In here you see manual backups is successful. And in here, if we are going to refresh this, you're gonna see that you have a dump. That's why it will be good to put a name for this. So basically, when you are doing this, you can put test. Like this. And right now it created the directory with test, and it will put all the backups in here with the test database. Another thing, if you have applications, for instance, in here that has databases, like this one, for instance, not diffuse, you can go and enable the backup for the database of this application, and you can go in here. And again, you can go and choose the database type. It's a Postgres, destination test, like this. Service name, it will be the DB database. We're going to go and need to see, okay, it's Postgres is the name. Just wanted to show you how you can backup an application. Again, choose the details, DB, database, select destination every day. Okay, prefix we're going to do, for instance, Postgres not diffuse, like this. 5 database user, it's Postgres. Create. Okay, let's put Postgres again because it needs the database user. And right now, if we're going to do it like this, just to force it, and we should have a backup also for our application database in this side. And in here, you have the Postgres not diffuse folder. And you have the backup with the notifuse details. This is it's a binary. Okay, so this is the dump for the database. You see that we have the details in here, and you can go on backup everything in there. So yeah, I hope this video helped you understand how Dokploy backups are working, and in case you like what you have seen, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and watch my other videos on Dokploy if you are interested to see more.